My name is Emily, and the last words my mom said to me before I dropped out of college were, "Family comes first. School will always be there. Our store won't." She said it like she was delivering some ancient wisdom, like she was passing down a noble sacrifice. I was 19, standing in our cramped kitchen over a bowl of cereal I suddenly didn't want, while my acceptance packet from State University sat open on the table, half covered by past due invoices from Harper's Market. Harper's Market was my parents' store. They'd bought it when I was 11. A small, independent neighborhood grocery on the corner of Maple and Fifth. When they signed the papers, they called it our future. When they needed help, they called it our family business. When they needed free labor, they called it your duty. When the bank finally called it too risky to lend, I was the one who closed the file. This is the story of how my parents forced me to quit college to work in their store, and how I became the bank officer who told them no. I grew up in a small town in Missouri, where most people either worked for the hospital, the school district, or for themselves, which usually meant some combination of side hustles and seasonal construction. My dad worked nights at a distribution center when I was little. My mom bounced between receptionist jobs. We were always just a little behind on everything. The car. The electric bill. They fought about money a lot. When I was 11, an older couple in town put their corner grocery up for sale. It was the kind of place with squeaky floors, dusty candy jars, and a bell over the door. My parents saw it and fell in love with the idea immediately. "No more bosses," my dad said. "No more night shifts. We'll be our own company." Mom was even more sold. "Think about it, Em," she said, eyes shining. "We'll have something to pass down to you. A real legacy." They scraped together a down payment with the help of my grandparents, took out a small business loan, and became the proud owners of Harper's Market. Those first couple of years actually felt kind of magical. I got to sit on milk crates behind the counter, doing homework while Mom rang up customers. Dad whistled along to the radio as he stocked shelves. People in town came by, curious and excited. "We're so glad someone local bought it," they'd say. We were worried it would turn into a vape shop. We had Thanksgiving dinners in the back room because someone had to watch the place. I didn't mind. At 11, it felt like an adventure. At 17, it felt like a trap. The market never really made the kind of money my parents thought it would. They had this dream that owning a store meant they'd be flush with cash and freedom. Reality was long hours, slim margins, and constant competition. When a big box store opened 10 minutes away, things got worse. People still liked us, but they liked paying $3 less for laundry detergent more. My parents tried to keep up. They added a deli case, started doing sandwiches and soups. Mom ordered custom Harper's Market reusable bags. Dad painted over the old faded sign. But the numbers never quite worked. From the time I was old enough to lift a crate, I helped. Unpaid. Family doesn't charge family, Mom would say if I hinted at an allowance. In high school, while my friends hung out at the mall or worked at the movie theater, I was ringing up customers, restocking shelves, running the register on Sunday mornings while my parents took a break. I got a part-time job at the library junior year, mostly for the quiet and the tiny paycheck. My parents hated it. "You're burning yourself out," Mom said. "You need to focus on school, not some silly library gig. If you want work experience, you have a store right here." I wanted both. A life and an exit. I worked hard in school. Not because anyone pushed me. Because I wanted out. I studied in between customers. Did AP homework in the back room. Taped flashcards to the cooler doors. I applied to State University an hour away and got in with a partial scholarship. The acceptance letter felt like a golden ticket. My guidance counselor hugged me. "You're going to do great things," she said. At home, the reaction was mixed. Dad was quietly proud. He framed the letter and hung it on the wall behind the checkout counter. Mom forced a smile. "College is expensive," she said. "Don't get your hopes up too much. We'll have to see." "We'll have to see" became her mantra. Any time I brought up dorm deposits or meal plans, she'd say, "We'll have to see how the store is doing." The store was never doing well enough. By July, it was clear they were behind. Vendors calling. Electric company threatening disconnection. The bank asking about late payments on the business loan. One night, after they thought I'd gone to bed, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. We can't keep going like this, Dad said. We need help. We should hire someone part-time so we're not here 80 hours a week. With what money? Mom snapped. We can't even pay ourselves half the time. What about Emily? He asked. She's here all the time anyway. She knows the register. We could give her a little something and she's going off to college, Mom said. You know that. There was a pause. She doesn't have to, Dad said quietly. The silence after that was louder than any shouting. A week later, they sat me down at the kitchen table. There were bills spread out like a fan between us. Electric, vendor invoices, loan statements, my acceptance packet. Mom began, in her best serious parent voice, we need to talk about the fall. I already knew where this was going. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. The store is in trouble, she said. Sales are down. Costs are up. The big guys are squeezing us. Your father and I are drowning. We're doing everything we can, but… She trailed off dramatically. Dad stared at his hands. We can't keep it open without more help, he said. I help all the time, I said. After school, weekends. That's not enough anymore, Mom cut in. We need someone full-time. Someone we trust. We can't afford employees. We can't have strangers in the cash drawer. This is our family's livelihood. I waited. I'm transferring my credits to state, I said. I'll work evenings. We've talked about this. That's the thing, she said. We've thought about it and it's not realistic. My heart pounded. What do you mean? I asked. You living in some dorm, working part-time for $7 an hour while we lose the store, she said. We'd all be out on the street. Is that what you want? No, I said. But we need you here, she said. Full-time. At least for a couple of years. Until we stabilize. Then you can go back. College isn't going anywhere. Harper's might. There it was. The ask. More like the demand. You're telling me to give up my spot, I said. Not give up, she said quickly. Postpone. The university defers people all the time. You're young. You have time. Our business doesn't. Why does this have to be my sacrifice? I asked, voice shaking. Why not hire someone part-time? Why not cut back on inventory? Close earlier? Because employees cost money, she said, like I was dense. We can't trust kids in the register. And you're our daughter. Dad finally spoke. Your mom's right, he said quietly. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I looked at the bills, at the acceptance letter, at my whole future stacked under grocery store invoices. I've worked so hard, I said. I don't know if I'll get this chance again. You will, Mom said. We'll make sure of it. But right now, we need you. Family first. I wanted to scream, to throw the bills in the air and say, you made this mess, clean it up. Instead, I did what I'd been trained my whole life to do. I folded. Just 1 year? I asked weakly. Then I go back? Of course, she said. We'd never stand in the way of your dreams. Looking back, that might be the biggest lie she ever told. I deferred my admission. Packed up my dorm room. My roommate hugged me, tearful. This sucks, she said. But you'll be back. Right? Yeah, I lied. I moved back into my old room. Except it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a holding cell. At the store, my schedule went from whenever they needed me to whenever the doors were open. 6 days a week. Open to close. We closed on Sundays for family. But someone still had to receive deliveries and count stock. That someone was usually me. Mom called me assistant manager when talking to customers. She called me selfish if I asked about pay. We can't afford to give you much right now, she said as we went over payroll one night. Once we get ahead, we'll make it up to you. How much is not much? I asked. $50 a week, she said. Cash. That should cover your gas and pocket money. You're living at home, eating our food. We're taking care of you. $50. For 60+ hours of work. I'd make more babysitting twice a month. It's illegal not to pay me minimum wage, I muttered, then immediately regretted it. Her head snapped up. You think you're an employee? She said. Your family. Those labor laws are for strangers, not for people working together to keep a roof over their heads. That's not how it works, I said. It is in this house, she shot back. Dad stayed out of it. He always did. I learned inventory systems, vendor terms, how to calm a customer who thought we'd overcharged them, how to spot shoplifters. I did not learn how not to resent the hell out of every minute. The 1 year stretched into 2. Then 3. Every time fall rolled around, and freshmen moved into dorms with their plastic storage bins and fairy lights, my chest hurt. You can reapply, my friends said on group chats. You were such a good student. Colleges will still want you. You don't understand, I'd type, then delete. I'm stuck. At home, any mention of going back to school turned into a fight. Not now, Mom would say. We're finally catching up. If you leave, we're back at square one. Don't you care about your family? I did care. Just not only about them. I started taking online classes at night without telling her. One at a time. Community college business courses. Accounting 101. Intro to microeconomics. I used my $50 a week to pay the tuition. When Mom saw bank statements showing charges to Midtown Community, she confronted me. What is this? She demanded, slapping the paper down on the counter. Classes, I said. I'm taking them after work. Why? She asked. We're teaching you everything you need to know about business right here. With all due respect, I said, if this were working, we wouldn't be behind on everything. Her face flushed. You ungrateful child, she said. We gave up everything for this store. Your father left a good job. I could be in an office making decent money. We sacrificed. And all you do is criticize. I'm not criticizing, I said. I'm trying to learn how to help better. She pointed a finger at me. You go to those classes on your own time, she said. You don't let them fill your head with nonsense about loans and risk. We do things our way. Their way was slowly killing us. I kept going anyway. The turning point came courtesy of a guy in a suit named Dan. He was a business banker from a regional bank that had the node on Harper's Market. Every so often, when we were late on a payment or wanted to extend a line of credit, he'd stop by the store. He'd sit at the small office desk in the back, spreading out papers, and talk to my parents. They treated him like he was speaking ancient Greek. I listened from the doorway while pretending to organize invoices. We really need to see more consistent cash flow, Dan would say. Right now your margins are slim, and your debt to income is high. Mom would smile tightly. We're doing everything we can, she'd say. Business is seasonal. You can't look at us like some big chain. I'm not, he'd say. But the bank has to look at risk. We've extended interest-only periods 3 times. We can't keep doing that. One day, after he left, I found the printouts he'd left behind. Profit and loss statements. Balance sheets. Cash flow analyses. Columns of numbers I was just beginning to understand from my classes. I pored over them late that night in my room. Utilities. Cost of goods. Loan payments. Our margins were razor thin. We weren't paying ourselves a salary half the time. Every solution my parents pursued ordering more stock on credit, taking small cash advances against the business card only made the hole deeper. The next time Dan came in, I asked him a question after my parents went up front to handle a rush. How did you learn to read all this? I asked, gesturing to the papers. He smiled. School, he said. And the bank's training program. Why? I'm taking some classes, I said. Business, accounting. I want to understand it better. My parents don't always listen to me when I bring up numbers. He chuckled. That happens, he said. If you ever want to get out from behind that counter, we're always looking for smart, numbers-minded people. Tellers. Analysts. People who can translate this stuff into English. I thought about my mom's words. You'll never make it without us. Then I thought about Spreadsheet Dan, with his neat tie and calm demeanor, saying we. His we wasn't family. It was a team. A system. I wanted in. The next few years were a balancing act. By day, I ran Harper's Market like it was my business. By night, I took classes. More accounting. Finance. Business law. I saved every spare dollar. Put it in a separate account. One my mother didn't know about. When I had enough credits to transfer, I applied to state again. This time, as a working adult. I got in. Part-time, but in. I didn't tell my parents until I'd already registered. They went ballistic. You're abandoning us, Mom said. Again. Right when things are fragile. You'll still have me, I said. I'm not moving away. I'm taking 2 classes a semester. I'll work mornings and weekends, but I'm not giving up school again. We can't do this without you, she insisted. You said that last time, I said. And it didn't get better, it got worse. Dad looked at me quiet. "How are you paying for it?" he asked. "Grants," I said. "A little in loans. The money I've been saving." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Saving?" she said. "With what?" "Tips," I lied. "Here and there." She didn't like it. But she didn't have the energy to fight as hard as she had when I was 19. The store was wearing her down. She looked older, thinner, more tired. She also saw, I think, that her arguments didn't hold the same power they used to. I'd kept the store afloat during a bad vendor strike that she'd almost tanked with a panic order. I'd renegotiated a few small supply contracts. I'd shown her, in black and white, how changing our ordering pattern on certain items could save hundreds a month. She'd grudgingly admitted that maybe, just maybe, my classes weren't all nonsense. She resented that. But she couldn't unsee the results. So I split myself in two. Student, store manager. It was brutal. But it was progress. When I was 27, with a degree finally in hand, I got my first job at a bank. It wasn't glamorous. Entry-level credit analyst at a regional bank. Mostly number crunching. Approving or denying small personal loans according to strict guidelines. It paid more than I'd ever made in my life. I took the job. My parents were not happy. "Banking?" Mom said, as if I'd announced I was joining a cult. "You're going to become one of those people who nickel and dimes families to death?" "I'm going to become one of those people who understands money," I said. Deeply, for once. "What about the store?" she asked. "I'll still help when I can," I said. "Weekends, maybe. But I'm not making my life revolve around Harper's anymore." "You're abandoning your family business for strangers," she said. "No," I said. "I'm choosing my career. There's a difference." I started at the bank on a Monday. By Friday, I'd learned more about credit risk than my parents had in 20 years of running their store. We had training modules on debt-to-income ratios, collateral, cash flow analysis, red flags for failing businesses. Every example they showed us, I could see my parents' store in it. Thin margins, no cash reserves, relying on short-term credit to cover long-term problems. I kept working at the store when I could, but less and less. They hired a high school kid to fill in some gaps. He lasted longer than I expected. Mom still complained constantly. "You're never here," she'd say. "You don't see how hard this is. You think you're too good for us now. I think I can't work 80 hours a week for free and also do my actual job," I said. She didn't want to hear that. So she didn't. Over the next few years, my career moved forward. I got promoted to junior business loan analyst, then senior analyst, then small business loan officer. I loved it. I got to sit at a desk with actual authority and help decide which businesses got financing. I met people at all stages, dreamers with ideas and no plan, solid, boring companies wanting to expand, owners in trouble looking for a lifeline. I was fair, firm. I said yes when the numbers and stories supported it. I said no when they didn't. Sometimes no hurt. When a family had poured everything into something that just wasn't viable, my heart ached. But I also knew giving them more debt would be like tossing an anchor to someone who was already drowning. I carried that philosophy with me the day my manager slid a file across my desk with a familiar name on it. Harper's Market loan request. I stared at the folder for a long moment before opening it. I knew this day might come. I still wasn't ready. The loan file was ugly. Years of declining revenue. Increased competition from chain stores and delivery services. A big dip during COVID. Past due tax payments. Delinquent vendor accounts. The existing business loan had been modified twice. Interest-only periods. Short-term extensions. The real knife in the file was the request. $150,000 term loan / working capital plus store renovation in translation. Give us a lot of money to patch holes and slap some paint on a sinking ship. My job wasn't to care that it was my parents. My job was to assess, could this business reasonably repay this loan? Did the collateral support the risk? Did the owners have a history of honoring obligations? On paper, the answers were, probably not. And, not really. I pulled up their personal credit files. Mom's score was bad. Dad's was slightly better but weighed down by shared accounts. Late payments. Maxed cards. Old collections. The loan approval software spat out a recommendation in bold red letters. Decline high risk/insufficient cash flow. I could have closed the file right then. But procedure required an in-person meeting for existing clients, especially ones with history. My manager, who knew just enough to know this was complicated, put his head in my office. "Do you want someone else to take it?" he asked. "We can do that, if it's too personal." I thought about it. For about 2 seconds. "No," I said. "I can handle it." "Sure?" he pressed. "Sure," I said. He nodded. "We'll set a time," he said. Standard pitch. You know the drill. Oh, I knew the drill. They just had no idea I was now the one leading it. The day of the meeting, I came in early. I straightened my already straight desk, checked that the reports were in order, took a deep breath, looked in the little mirror inside my drawer, and reminded myself, I'm not 19. I'm not their unpaid employee. I'm a professional. I'm allowed to say no. At 10 sharp, the receptionist buzzed my extension. "Your 10 o'clock is here," she said. My stomach did a weird little flip. "Send them in," I said. A moment later, the door opened. Mom walked in first, her good purse on her arm, her hair done like she was going to church. Dad followed, shoulders hunched. They both stopped short when they saw my nameplate on the desk. "Emily?" Mom said, eyes widening. "You're the loan person?" "Loan officer," I said. "Have a seat." They sat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mom laughed, brittle. "Well, this is interesting," she said. "I told your father we should ask for Emily's help. She knows money. I just didn't realize we'd literally be sitting across from you. I'm the small business loan officer for this region now," I said. "So yes, you are." She brushed invisible lint from her skirt. "Well, good," she said. "Family looking out for family. That's how it should be." I opened the file. "We're going to go through this like I would with any other client," I said. "I need to understand what you're asking for, what the business looks like today, and how you plan to repay a new loan." Her smile faltered. "Of course," she said. "We have a plan." I waited. "Well," she said, "as you know, Harper's has been on that corner for more than 15 years. People love us. They always say they'd hate to lose us. But the big stores and online shopping have hurt us. We just need a little boost to remodel, add some new features, maybe a cafe corner, draw customers back. The community will show up if we give them a reason." I'd heard that speech from a dozen struggling owners. Nostalgia as business strategy. "What does a little boost look like in numbers?" I asked. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. A handwritten list of estimates. New coolers, flooring, coffee machines. Total, about 150,000, she said. Give or take. I kept my face neutral. "And how much additional monthly revenue do you project from these changes?" I asked. She hesitated. "We haven't done all the math," she said. "But we know other places that added coffee bars saw big increases." "Did you bring year-to-date financials?" I asked. "Profit and loss, balance sheet, last 3 years' tax returns?" Dad pulled a crumpled folder from the grocery bag and handed it over. "Best we could do," he said. "Messy, but enough to see the picture. Declining revenue, shrinking gross profit, net losses in 2 out of the last 3 years. You're not profitable," I said gently. "We would be, if we didn't have this loan hanging over us," Mom said. "The interest is killing us. That's why we need a new one. To pay off the old one, make improvements, and get ahead." I glanced at the existing loan. They'd extended interest-only periods repeatedly. They hadn't touched the principal in years. "What happens if we say no?" I asked. She blinked. "What do you mean?" she asked. "If the bank declines this request," I said, "what is your plan B?" She stared at me. "There is no plan B," she said. "This is it. If we don't get this loan, we lose the store. We lose the house." There it was. The nuclear option. Guilt, deployed like a weapon. "We're your parents," she added, her voice cracking. "We poured our lives into that place. We pulled you out of school to keep it running. The least you can do is help us save it." I exhaled slowly. "Let me be very clear," I said. "I am not the only decision-maker here. There's an underwriting team, algorithms, risk committees. My recommendation matters, but it's not a magic stamp." She leaned forward. "I know you can make it happen," she said. "If you want to. Family comes first, remember?" I thought about that night at the kitchen table. About the promise of just 1 year. About 3 years stocking shelves while my classmates walked across graduation stages. About learning accounting in secret between customer rushes. I also thought about the other businesses whose loans I handled. Owners who'd done the hard, boring work of saving cash, cutting costs, building a cushion. If I bent the rules for my parents, knowing full well the risk, I wouldn't just be compromising my ethics. I'd be putting the bank, my job, and my other clients in jeopardy. I closed the folder. Here's the situation, I said. Based on your financials, your declining revenue, your existing debt, and your credit profiles, this loan does not meet our risk criteria. Mom's eyes flashed. But you could, she began. No, I said, gently but firmly. I can't change the numbers. Even if you weren't my parents, my recommendation based on our guidelines would be to decline. Her mouth opened and closed. You're going to let us lose everything, she whispered. I'm not letting anything happen, I said. The choices you've made over the last decade, the refinances, the credit cards, the failure to adapt got you here. A new loan won't fix that. It will just delay the inevitable and leave you with even more debt when the music stops. Dad rubbed his forehead. So that's it? He asked. No help? No options? There are options, I said. Just not this one. I laid them out. Number 1. Sell while you still can, I said. Find a buyer willing to take over the store, or at least the building. Pay off what you owe, walk away with whatever equity is left, and start fresh. Mom recoiled. Sell, she said. To who? Some chain that will gut it? Never. Number 2. Downsize aggressively, I said. Cut expenses to the bone. Close earlier. Reduce inventory. Maybe that buys you time. But based on the trend lines, I don't think it solves the core problem. Number 3. Talk to a small business counselor or turnaround specialist. They might see angles we don't. But again, the underlying market realities are brutal. You're competing with giants. She stared at me like I'd spoken blasphemy. You sound just like those people on TV who talk about creative destruction, she said. Where's your heart, Emily? This is our life. I swallowed. My heart is the reason I'm not signing you up for more debt you can't repay, I said. I care too much to hand you a prettier noose. She slammed her hand on the desk. You owe us, she hissed. We gave up everything for you. We took you in when you had nowhere else to go. We fed you, clothed you. You think your fancy bank job just happened? I looked at her, steady. I do owe you, I said. I owe you honesty. And boundaries. And the knowledge I've gained about what happens to people who take loans they can't service. I don't owe you my integrity. I don't owe you a blank check from an institution I represent. Dad looked at me with something like resignation. She's right, he said quietly to Mom. We've been patching holes for years. Maybe this is the end of the line. Mom turned on him. You're just going to give up? She demanded. He sighed. I'm tired, Linda, he said. I can't keep pretending we're one good month away from a miracle. She looked between us, furious. You're both against me, she said. She stood abruptly, grabbed the folder off the desk, then seemed to remember I had the originals and sat back down slowly. What are you going to put in your little report? She asked, voice dripping with contempt. The truth, I said. Decline due to insufficient cash flow, high existing leverage, and negative profitability. And that's it? She asked. After everything? That's it, I said. After they left, I sat alone in my office, my hands shaking slightly. I knew, intellectually, that I'd made the right call. Emotionally, it still hurt. The little girl in me wanted to run after them, to say, wait, I'll fix it, I'll find a way. The adult in me knew there was no fix that didn't involve more pain later. My manager checked in. How'd it go? He asked. About how you'd expect, I said. They're upset. Do you need to step back from the file? He asked. We can have someone else finalize it. I'm fine, I said. I'll close it out. He nodded. You did good, he said. Our job isn't to give people what they want. It's to keep them and us from making things worse. I closed the loan request in the system. Status. Declined for the first time. That word didn't feel like failure. It felt like an honest boundary. A few months later, Harper's Market went dark. The closed for inventory sign in the window stayed up for weeks. Then a for lease sign appeared. People in town talked. It's a shame, they said. We loved that place. Some of them had loved it enough to actually shop there. Most had just loved the idea of it. My parents sold what they could: fixtures, coolers, old shelves. They paid off as much of the business loan as the sale proceeds allowed. The bank wrote off the rest as a loss. They didn't lose the house. They did lose the narrative. The story they'd told themselves for years, that owning a business made them better, more responsible, more noble than wage slaves. That family sacrifice would be rewarded. That the problem was always someone else. The economy. The big chains. Never them. Watching that story collapse hurt them more than losing the store. I know because, for the first time, they showed some openness to a new one. My dad got a job with the city, doing maintenance at public buildings. Steady hours. Steady paycheck. No illusions of glory. He seemed relieved. We should have done this years ago, he admitted once, when we met for coffee. What about Mom? I asked. He sighed. She's grieving, he said. And mad at everyone. Especially you. That tracks, I said. Give her time, he said. She has to grieve the idea of the store as much as the actual place. I did give her time. We didn't talk for almost a year. Then, one afternoon, she showed up at my house with a Tupperware of lasagna and an air of stubborn determination. I'm not apologizing, she said, standing stiffly in my doorway. Okay, I said, leaning on the frame. But I'm here, she added. That's something. It is, I said. We ate lasagna at my tiny kitchen table. She looked around at my modest but comfortable life. The framed photos. The shelves with books on finance and cooking. The simple, peaceful space. You did all this without us, she said. Not quite a question. Yes, I said. I did. She stared at her plate. We thought, if you left you'd fail, she said slowly. We told ourselves that. Because the idea of you succeeding without us, she shook her head. It scared me more than the idea of you coming back broke. Why? I asked, genuinely curious. Because then what was I? She asked. If you could make it without me controlling everything, what did that say about all the sacrifices I thought I'd made? I thought about that. It says they weren't the only way, I said. It doesn't mean they were meaningless. It just means they weren't the whole story. She nodded, swallowing. I still think you should have said yes, she muttered. To the loan. I know you do, I said. And I still know that if I had, you'd probably be in worse shape now. More debt. Same problems. Fewer options. She didn't argue. That was progress. People ask me if I regret it. If I regret walking away from college the first time. If I regret going back. If I regret declining that loan. If I regret not just bending the rules for one file with my parents' name on it. The answer is complicated. I regret that I didn't stand up for myself sooner. I regret that I let their fear dictate my first big life decision. I don't regret the second chance I clawed back for myself. I don't regret the nights of studying between customers. I don't regret learning the language of money well enough to see clearly when someone's asking for a lifeline that's actually a lead weight. And I don't regret saying no. Not anymore. Because saying no to that loan wasn't really about the bank. It was about finally saying no to a lifetime of being told my role was to sacrifice my future to prop up someone else's failing story. Would I have felt better in the moment if I'd saved the store? Maybe. But years later, when the payments came due and the margins stayed thin, I'd be sitting in a different office having a worse conversation. And eventually, I'd have to choose between my parents' denial and my own integrity all over again. Better to choose once. Cleanly. Honestly. So yes, my parents forced me to quit college to work in their store. Yes, they used guilt and fear as leverage. Yes, they told me I'd never make it without them. And yes, years later, I closed their loan file. Not out of spite. Out of respect for myself, for my job, and for the reality that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to help them keep lying to themselves. Thank you for listening to my story.